Another top 5 list? Just what the internet needs, we thought to ourselves. Not enough Gump in the top 5 list I've found, and we all know what an important ingredient that is. Without further ado, here are our top 5 best, and more importantly, most Gump Super Nintendo RPGs. Number 5. Secret of Mana is the kind of game full of secrets and mana. Mana, these games cool. You get it, huh? Okay, no, but seriously, Secret of Mana is a great game. Part of Square's Seiken Densetsu series of action role-playing games. Secret of Mana tells an overall pretty conventional story of good versus evil, the corruption caused by the pursuit of power, and is even a bit of a coming-of-age tale. The game itself has a beautiful look to it, with a ton of colors on the screen. As far as gameplay, it adds some interesting mechanics to the typical action RPG formula, including a short period between attacks where the player must wait to regain full attack strength, and some very well-animated power attacks that always feel cool to execute. The game does feature multiplayer, and it's good fun if you can get a couple of friends together. Also, the music is pretty much fantastic, as can be expected of 16-bit era Squaresoft. All that said, this classic definitely deserves to be played. Luckily, like many others on the list, there are now a ton of ways to get hold of a copy aside from paying for those expensive Super Nintendo cards, from Virtual Console to iOS. Moving on. Number 4. Final Fantasy games in general are pretty awesome if you ask us, but when it comes right down to it, few do the whole Final Fantasy thing better than the 4th entry in the series. Final Fantasy IV introduced a lot of the elements into the series that we now understand as core to the whole experience. 4 brought us memorable characters, from leading man Cecil Harvey and his story of self-redemption to Palamon Poorman. Well, some of you know the rest. Speaking of introducing core elements, 4 also brought us the ATB system, something that, in some form or another, would go on to be used again and again, both in the series itself and even within other works by Square. To this day, people love it, so Square must have done something right, I guess. Beyond that, Final Fantasy IV is just really well put together, loaded with memorable moments and fantastical locations to see. For many fans of the series here in America, it would be our first look at a world and a series that we would return to again and again. Number 3. Who would have thought that Square and Nintendo would come together to make a game? An RPG, a turn-based RPG taking place in the world of Mario. Well, they did it, and it was a stroke of genius, as it turns out. Super Mario RPG is widely considered to be one of the greatest Super Nintendo games of any genre, and that idea isn't without merit. Every facet of the game is great. Being able to see the Mushroom Kingdom as an actual place and not just a backdrop for your side-scrolling Mario adventures was a fantastic revelation for longtime Nintendo fans. And who could have guessed that these characters would be so exciting to use in a turn-based combat system? Toadstool as a healer, Bowser as an offensive powerhouse. Aside from all of that, who would have guessed that these characters had so much personality hiding away? And then there were the timed attacks to accentuate the damage done in combat. The great Mario-style music and the pseudo-3D isometric visuals were just icing on the already perfect gaming cake. Number 2. Okay guys, we're in the home stretch, and somewhat disappointingly enough, we're almost forced to honor the same series twice. There are no two ways about it. Final Fantasy VI is nearly the perfect 16-bit RPG. Top-of-the-line, state-of-the-art visuals, we're talking in Super Nintendo terms here, of course, and a peerless soundtrack work in tandem with a great story and a cast of characters that you really begin to care about. What this game has that others don't, however, is Kefka. Kefka might be the single greatest central villain in a Final Fantasy game, period. No mean feat considering the contenders, but Kefka has a unique appeal in that his lack of any true motive makes him difficult to relate to and very easy to hate. There's not much more I can say about Final Fantasy VI that hasn't already been said. But remember when I told you it is nearly the perfect 16-bit RPG? Well, that's because there can be only one. Number 1. Chrono Trigger. What isn't good in this game? Everything comes together perfectly, from the diverse cast of characters from different time periods to the pretty much perfect combat system with the awesome tech combos, and let's not forget the story with countless endings, character deaths, and time travel as a truly unique element for the time. The game overall had great pacing and an almost choose-your-own-adventure feel to it. The plot never really felt like it dragged on or was unnecessarily padded, and if anything, when it's all said and done, we've often felt like returning immediately to start our adventure over once again. It's no real surprise that the game ended up this good, being that it was built from the ground up by the dream team of Hironobu Sakaguchi, Yuji Horii, the creator of Dragon Quest, Akira Toriyama of DBZ fame, and our boy Uematsu on the ones and twos. To top it all off, the game had a proper New Game Plus, and well, I think the point's really been made. Now, there are a few games left off of the list. Obviously, there were a ton of classic games on the Super Nintendo, and something has to be left out on a list this small. But we did want to give out some honorable mentions, so here it goes. Terranigma was cool and innovative, but didn't quite notch its way in. Lufia 2 is a classic, just not as classic as the 5 we went over. And Earthbound was pretty much just left off the list to hurt your feelings. Have a good one.